Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It has been a while since I've done one of these, hot topic videos. So, obviously you can tell by the name of the video and the thumbnail, we are talking about nerfing red. It is no surprise at this point that we are now in set 3 and red is still the best color in the game. Now, set 1, it was a toss-up between red and green. And near the end, blue actually was thrown into the meta as well. Red is just generically the best color. It has the most generic pool of cards, and it is the only color that seems to be continuously adding support to the previous set. In set 1, the Straw Hat stuff was fantastic. Nami was the best searcher. You had the Rush Zoros. Zoro being, the leader, most generic leader, having probably the best ability in set 1. All those cards got support in set 2 with the release of a bunch of more searchers that helped you find your one-drop cards, which made Zoro incredibly consistent, basically turning Zoro into a red weenie deck. And then of course you have Edward Newgate, the first leader to have the 6k base power and just an assortment of amazing cards that, once again, in set 3, we got more good Whitebeard cards and more generic good red. While in every other color, there's not that consistency. Blue got briefly, blue in set 1 was all about 7 warlords and bouncing cards back to hand, but the costs were never great. Sorry, the costs were never worth it because red had built-in bounce, because all of red, sorry, cannot talk. All of red's cards had on-play abilities, so even if you bounce red cards back to hand, guess what? You could just play them again and get their abilities. So built-in protection against blue cards. Blue got some 7 Warlord stuff in set 2, but it got a whole new archetype in Ivankov. And then set 3, it got a whole new archetype in Nami with a little bit of support for Croc, surprisingly. Green set 1 was a lot of Wano and Supernovas. Set 2 got some more Wano stuff, and then set 3 was switched to East Blue. You kind of, and was not even going to talk about purple. Red has consistently just gotten better and better and better. Now I know what people are saying. Set 4 is supposed to make red a lot more manageable. But apparently then set 5, from what they're saying, is going to bring red back to the top. So these are, in my opinion, things that we need to do going forward, or eventually, because I think I'm not alone with my opinions of, I'm tired of seeing Whitebeards. I'm tired of seeing Zoro. It's just, the decks are overtuned and they need some nerfing. So here are my opinions of what we can do to make the color manageable and actually a fair color. So let's get started. All right, and the first thing we're going to do is, just right off the bat, I would love to see these 2 leaders banned. Mainly for these reasons. Whitebeard, Whitebeard and Zoro are, like I said in the beginning of the video, are the 2 tier 0 decks, or tier 1 or tier S, or however you want to make your tier list. These 2 leaders are still there, and they are just the most generically good, overtuned decks in the game currently. And this is my opinion as to why I believe these need to be banned. Whitebeard has built-in defense. Having that 6k power just makes it so you have to attach at least 1 Dawn to any 5k swinger. And if you, unlike before where you could, on a 4k, bump it up to a 5k with just a single Dawn, now if you have a 4k on board wanting to hit Whitebeard, you have to supply at least 2 Dawn. It's just, that extra 1k is so important in this game, that requiring every single baseline attacker to have that extra 1 Dawn on there. Plus, you always want to, the magic number is always, you want to have 2 higher than what you're swinging into. So if you're swinging into a 5k, you want to swing into with a 7k. With Whitebeard, you have to swing in with an 8k. And that is requiring any 5k attacker to swing in with 3 Dawn is just ridiculous. And then the other reason is that it has too big of a hand. The fact that Whitebeard essentially gets an additional draw per turn is just insane. Yes, I understand it is taking life, and life is very important in this game, but when you have a hand that is just absolutely ridiculous, full of 2Ks, 1-drop counter cards that give you 3 to 4K power, you're never going to be scared to go down to low life because Whitebeard has the fattest hand of any deck. You cannot tell me there's any deck out there that has a bigger hand than a Whitebeard deck. For Zoro, really, it's just his ability is too generic. The fact that he gets 1 Dawn on him to give all other cards on his board an additional 1k is so insane of value. The fact that there is no reason to play any other red deck in this format because these two decks exist is, yeah, you have the Ace deck. The Ace deck is pretty solid, but why play Ace when you can play Whitebeard? All these cards that go into Ace, for the most part, can go into Whitebeard. Sure, Ace has a couple tech cards that are really neat, but at the end of the day, Whitebeard and Zoro are just better than Ace. And I get it, Law is half red, and Law is also considered one of the better decks in the format, but the fact that Law really didn't get any new support in set 3, it's basically the same deck. So once you know how to beat Law, it is not that difficult. These two, on the other hand, before, back in the day, with Zoro, it was just draining them of resources. But there are now so many new Searcher cards that are all 1-drop Searchers, like Buggy, Ezo, Curly Dadan. I know that's a 2-drop, but there's so much Searchers in the deck that the consistency for red red in general, Whitebeard or Zoro, is just too good. So you can't really drain them of resources anymore because they can just recoup them way too quickly. So that's, in my opinion, why these two leaders should be banned. Next big thing I want to do here, and you're going to be surprised here, because it's not just red here. I think these two particular cards need to be errated to have a limit 1 per board. And what I mean by that is, if you have a, let's say, Charlotte Linlin on board, a 10-drop Charlotte Linlin on board, you cannot play another until that Charlotte Linlin is gone. Same with Whitebeard. It stops players from just abusingly constantly playing the same card every turn. Now, here, what I will admit is I do believe that Edward Newgate is the better of these two cards because of 2 reasons. 1, it gives you a permanent 2k boost to your character, a temporary 2k boost to your character during your turn and your opponent's turn. So if you're playing into a Whitebeard matchup, that Whitebeard is now an 8k body. So have fun trying to swing 8k and above in order to get any lethal damage. Second of all, it comes down for 9 Dawn instead of 10, which then leaves you with 1 open Dawn to use a Radical Beam or any other 1-drop counter. So ridiculous. The Charlotte Linlin is good, but the fact that you have to tap down all of your Dawn in order to play it every single turn, depending on your opponent's board state, they could just keep swinging in. I remember there's plenty of games where I'm just top decking Charlotte Linlins, or that's the only card I have in my hand, and I save myself 1 attack, but there's no other buff to that. So, but I will admit, these cards are both amazing, and they really should just be limited to 1 per board. Now, of course, people are going to say, well, that's just going to mess up people's deck building, because people usually run 4 copies of each of these cards. And you know what? Okay, that's fine. They can discard them for other abilities. There are the Marcos, which then you can use Newgate as, fodder to discard for the blocker Marco, and you can also discard your extra Linlins for your yellow triggers. You can still use these cards in the deck, but it's not just, you can't keep spamming them anymore. I think that's completely fair, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Next, I do want to errata Makino to one of 2 things, and I am open to ideas as well. I want to errata this card to, you have to discard this card in order to use its ability, or so you have to discard this card as well as pay the energy to use the ability, or you cannot activate it the same turn you play it. There are too many, especially in the Zoro deck, there are too many times where you play for 1, tap it, give 3k to a 1 cost, you have your 1 Don on Zoro, now that 2 cost is up to a 6k attacker. Or, in the case of Buggy, that is now a 7k attacker. Or have fun with this idea. Play 3 Makinos for 3 Don. Tap all 3, you now give any 1-drop card a 9k boost. That is insane value to me. You should not, true, once you use it, more than likely your opponent's just going to KO it. But the problem is just, no way a 1-drop card should give you that much power during the attack portion, during the attack step. That to me is just overtuned, overpowered. I really think these are fair erratas, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. We're going to go back on the ban train for a moment and ban these 2 cards in particular, Curly Dedan and Radical Beam. Curly Dedan in Zoro decks in particular is just incredibly consistent. You play it on your turn 2, or your turn 1, you search the top 5 for a 1-drop card and add it to your hand. That can be any red character with a cost of 1. That means your Izo, your Buggy, your Makinos. I know there's another, Choppers, Nami. The search, the pool of cards to search for is incredibly big. And then, on the counterattack, you can put 1 Don on it, and 1 Don on Zoro, and now you have a 5k attacker. Radical Beam is self-explanatory. Like I mentioned earlier, after playing the 9-drop Newgate, you have 1 open Don to play a Radical Beam. Since Newgate is almost always at 2 or less life later in the game, like very quickly in the game, I should say, this card is always active, and the ability to give your leader a 4k boost on defense for 1 Don is already insane, but throw that on top of a Newgate, that 6k goes to a 10k, or that 8k after the 9-drop boost goes to a 12k. It's insane. The card was, I don't think the card was ever designed to work with Whitebeard. It was really meant to be, hey, you're on the back end, you really need to, you really need some defense, here you go. But putting it with the Whitebeard engine is just ridiculous. So in my opinion, these cards really need to go because, yeah, it's self-explanatory. And finally, we are down to the Marcos, the 4-drop blocker Marco from set 2 and the 5-drop 6k Marco from set 3. Now, both these Marcos have the same essential ability, which is on KO, you may discard 1 card from your hand in order to bring them back onto the board in rest mode. For the blocker, it's a 1-drop, so it's a Whitebeard Pirates card. It can be the event, or it can be a character. It does have the ability, though, that if it's only usable if you have 2 or less life, which I mean is incredibly easy in Whitebeard, and it's just as good in Zoro. And of course, the 6k, you have to trash just 1 event from your hand. Now I know what they were trying to do here. They were trying to make it work with the Ace deck because it runs mostly events. But once again, in a Whitebeard deck or a Zoro deck, these cards offer incredible value. You can, the 6k also destroys a card with a cost of 3k or less, which of course you have so many cards in red that just nerf other cards, to an insane level. The 1-drop Gordon knocks down 3k off any card, and that's easily able to get below the 3k power that the 5-drop Marco can blow up. And even if you get rid of these cards with events or battle cards, all they have to do is just drop a card and it brings them back the next turn. So you just waste your time getting rid of these cards. My personal thoughts are these cards should be errata to having the ability to be used only once per turn. And I want that either as, each card can only be activated once per turn, or something that says your Marco cards can only be revived once, something along those lines. Or instead of discarding 1 card from hand, you have to discard 2. You have to make a sacrifice in order to keep these cards on board. They offer too much value in my opinion. And that's the whole thing with red. Red has the most value out of any color in this game. You cannot argue that. Maybe green. But green in this set is not nearly as good. Film Kid provides, pretty good value, but still red is the king of value in this game. And I would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. But I think that is it for my list of things that I would love to see happen to red in order to make it much more fair, in my opinion. Now, I know there's going to be players in the comment section saying, if all these happened, red would be awful. I disagree with that statement. I didn't touch a lot of really good red cards. Obviously, red still has all those searchers. Red has, cards that, can buff up their characters, with guard point. It has Gordon to lower cards down within kill cost. You have cards like Fire Fist, Flame Emperor. Oh my god, there's just so many good other red cards that I'm going to leave alone because I think these are the more appropriate ones. Now, this is a discussion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will respond to all of them because I love talking with you guys. I love having these discussions, but me and like a lot of other people are tired of seeing red. So let me know what you think once again, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.
Here's how the story goes. We find out by the treasure in the grand line. There's no doubt. The pirate whose eye is on it, he'll sing. I'll be king of the pirates. I'm gonna be king. His name is Luffy. That's Monkey D. Luffy. King of the pirates.